On March 1st, 1896, a day dawned in the mountains of northern Ethiopia that would send a shockwave across the world. It was a day when an African army, led by a brilliant king and a determined empress, faced a modern European power. The outcome was not what Europe expected. At a time when colonial powers were carving up Africa with rifles and cannons, Ethiopia stood its ground. The Battle of Adwa was more than just a fight. It was a powerful statement. It proved that unity strategy and a deep love for one's homeland could overcome even the most advanced military technology. A great leader stood at the heart of Ethiopia's defense. His name was Menelik II. He was born in Shewa and grew up a wise, strong ruler. He understood the world saw Europeans taking over Africa and knew Ethiopia could be next. He refused to lose his country's freedom, so he set out to strengthen the nation. Not just a warrior, but a thinker. Modernize while keeping ancient traditions. To face a modern army, he needed modern tools. He built his power, carefully made deals with European powers, and bought weapons. Bought from France, bought from Russia, both rivals of Italy. Menelik quietly built an arsenal. He wanted a modern country. Roads, bridges, telephone, telegraph. The conflict between Ethiopia and Italy did not start with a battle. It started with a piece of paper. This paper was called the Treaty of Wuchale. It was signed in 1889. Menelik and the Italians signed it to create a friendship between their two countries. The treaty was written in two languages, Amharic and Italian. The two versions did not say the same thing. This difference was not a small mistake. The Italian version said Ethiopia must go through Italy for all dealings with Europe, a protectorate. It meant Ethiopia would lose its independence. But in the Amharic version, using Italy was optional, not a requirement. When Menelik discovered the difference, he felt betrayed. He wrote to European leaders, rejecting Italy's claim. But Europe listened to Italy. Menelik publicly rejected the treaty, declaring Ethiopia would never accept a protectorate. A confrontation over Ethiopia's very existence became inevitable, facing the threat of an Italian invasion. Menelik II knew he could not defend Ethiopia alone. His empire was vast and made up of many different regions and peoples. Tigrayans, Amharas, Oromos, many other groups. Menelik's greatest challenge was to bring them all together. He sent out messengers across the land. He called on all Ethiopians, powerful nobles, humble farmers, to join together to defend their motherland. The response to Menelik's call was astonishing. Rulers from Tigray, Gojam, other provinces answered the call to arms. They brought their own weapons. They brought their own food. They brought fierce determination. The numbers were staggering, between 73,000 and 100,000 soldiers. Many were armed with modern rifles Menelik had purchased over the years. This massive united force was something the Italians had not predicted. General Oreste Baratieri had about 17,000 soldiers. They believed superior technology and training would guarantee victory. This miscalculation would prove to be a fatal mistake. Emperor Menelik II did not lead Ethiopia alone. By his side was a powerful and intelligent woman, Empress Teitu Betul. She was more than just the emperor's wife. She was his most trusted advisor, a brilliant strategist, known for her strong will and deep suspicion of European intentions. She marched with the army, commanding her own force and bringing cannons. She helped manage the immense challenge of feeding and supplying a vast host. She kept different lords united, reminding all of the shared cause. Before Adwa, at the siege of Mekelle, a fortified Italian garrison hid behind strong walls. Teitu saw their critical weakness, water. She advised cutting off their water source. Ethiopian forces controlled the wells for weeks. The Italians grew weaker and finally surrendered. Menelik let them go with their weapons, a confident, civilized gesture. Teitu's decisive action secured victory before the big battle and demoralized the enemy. She was an empress of steel. The march to Adwa had begun. The road to the final battle was long and difficult. After the victory at Mekelle, the huge Ethiopian army moved deeper into the rugged mountains of Tigray. The landscape was harsh, steep cliffs and narrow valleys. Feeding nearly 100,000 was monumental. Soldiers and followers carried food and supplies. Baratieri's supply lines were thin, his men exhausted and low on food. Rome demanded action. Against his judgment, Baratieri planned a surprise attack on February 29th. He divided about 17,000 men into 3 columns to seize high ground before dawn. But maps were poor, guides unreliable. In the darkness, columns got lost and separated. They failed to arrive coordinated, scattered, confused, exposed. As the sun cast its first light over the mountains of Adwa on March 1st, 1896, the battle began. Scouts loyal to Ras Alula and Gita saw the disorganized columns advancing and warned Menelik. Great war drums began to beat, summoning a nation in arms. Menelik mounted his horse. Empress Taitu mounted hers. Leaders took command. The element of surprise was gone. The trap would spring on its makers. One column met the army of Ras Makonnen, father of the future emperor Haile Selassie. The Ethiopians charged with incredible courage, shouting their war cries. They used terrain to advantage, firing from rock cover, charging down slopes. Menelik directed elite, well-armed reserves to the weakest points of the Italian line. Ethiopian guns rained down. Empress Taitu encouraged the troops and directed fire. By midday, the Italian army was broken. Lines collapsed into a desperate retreat. The news of the devastating defeat at Adwa hit Italy like an earthquake. The government fell, riots erupted, a nation reeled. Italy had to seek peace. The emperor, once tricked by a treaty, now dictated terms to a European power. A new treaty was signed, the Treaty of Addis Ababa. It cancelled the Wuchale Treaty and recognized Ethiopia's absolute independence. Menelik negotiated release of prisoners of war. But Ethiopia paid dearly. Thousands of soldiers lost, and a land strained by war. The price protected something greater: freedom. Ethiopia remained sovereign, an island of freedom in a colonized continent. A formal admission of defeat by Europe at African hands. Years of preparation, smart diplomacy, and fierce resistance had prevailed. Emperor Menelik II secured Ethiopia's place in the world. The treaty became a symbol of national strength and courage. Freedom had been defended and won. The significance of the Battle of Adwa extended far beyond Ethiopia. It was a historic event with global impact. At a time of European dominance and arrogance, the Ethiopian victory sent a powerful message. It proved that through unity, strategy, and determination, an African nation could defeat a modern European army. The story became a symbol of resistance and pride. It inspired early nationalist movements and fueled Pan-Africanism. Ethiopia, with Liberia, stood uncolonized during the scramble for Africa. Ethiopia developed on its own terms, preserving culture, faith, and institutions. Every March 1st, Ethiopians celebrate the heroes of Adwa. Adwa is a timeless lesson in courage, unity, and the desire for freedom. History is not always written by the most powerful, but by those who defend their home. Adwa was not just Ethiopia's victory, it was a victory for all who believe in self-determination. What did you think of this story? Please leave a like and a comment below. What other moments in history would you like us to explore next? Let us know your suggestions. Subscribe for more untold histories, and share this with someone who loves epic true stories.